pantsing versus plotting. As a writer, I'm sure you've heard these terms thrown around before, but what do they mean? What's the difference? Which one is better? And is one actually better? So let's start by defining the terms. Pantsing, or flying by the seat of your pants, is a sort of writing where you basically are making it up as you go. It's also known as discovery writing. And then plotting is where you plot out your story and you plan out what you're going to do ahead of time before you even start writing. So one isn't better than the other. There just are different things that you can learn from both ways. Usually, the more you write, the more you'll discover that you lean on one side of the spectrum, and that's okay. Usually, the more you write, you'll discover which side of the spectrum you tend to fall on. So let's talk about plotting. Writers that outline or plot tend to know more upfront where the story is going to go. So they know more aspects of the story because they've spent the time ahead of time figuring out what happens in the story, what character does what, and all the motivation in between. They also know a ton more about how the story will progress before they even start the manuscript. What I think is really cool is that they have a chance to see the end before they ever get there, and they can make these changes to the plot before they're thousands of words deep into the manuscript. I know it's way harder to edit it once you're thousands of words in and you can't see the big picture quite as well, whereas when you're just dealing with a plot and writing an outline, it's so much easier just to tweak things to help character motivations when you're just dealing with an outline. Another fact about plotters is that they tend to write a lot faster just because they have the outline there. They know what's going to happen. If they do get stuck, because all writers have writer's block, then they can look at their outline and see what they were planning on doing instead of just waiting for the next burst of inspiration to hit them. And along those lines, their first draft of their manuscript tends to be a lot cleaner just because they didn't have to deal with all the inspiration that hits randomly and random side plots crop up. I've had that happen before when I was discovery writing, and all of a sudden there were dolphins in my 1700 story. And the main character may or may not have fell off a ship and got saved by dolphins. Yes, I was more like 12 when I wrote this story. Also, yes, it does not make sense and it's not historically accurate and it does not work like that. So there are lots of different things that discovery writers have to deal with in their drafts that plotters don't usually have to deal with because they've thought through the aspects of believability and character motivation way before they ever put pen to paper. What I find really cool about outlining is that it results in a lot more of intricate storylines that weave together bigger twists because you've had that time to develop it beforehand. You also tend to create deeper characters and you spend less time rewriting in the end. You also create the character arcs beforehand, so you know your character is going from point A to point B and you know how that's going to happen, you know how it's going to work, and it just feels a lot simpler. So some authors plot as they go, where they're just making up the story as they go, writing it all down, and then just making the best story they can without really thinking through a structure. Or you can use things like the Save the Cat structure or the 3-act structure. I highly recommend looking into Save the Cat. It's a book that is super helpful with plotting and how different plot points work. I would highly recommend looking into that and getting yourself a copy of that. I also really recommend K.M. Weiland's blog. Her website is super helpful and informative with different things like character arcs and structures and how all that plays together. So I'll link her stuff in the description below and make sure to check that out because it is super helpful with crafting your stories. And I just love how she puts it. This is a quote from K.M. Weiland. "A good outline should be a spur of creativity, not a stumbling block. The author is the master of the outline, not its slave." So that's a really good way to view an outline. But the thing is that sometimes plotters get stuck on their outlines and they can't communicate the heart of the story because they don't feel invested in the characters. To them, it's just an outline. It's just a hard block of what's going to happen, and sometimes they don't feel that connection with the story or the characters as they should. So that leads us to the other side of the spectrum. We have pantsers or discovery writers. So these are the writers who basically work out the story as they go, where their characters are making the decisions and they're just following their inspiration. These writers tend to be a ton more connected to their stories because they're coming up with it as they go. Sometimes for discovery writers, that means that they start with just one sentence. That's all they got, and they just write a whole book starting with that. Other times, discovery writers start with a little outline where they just have a few bullet points of what they know they want to happen, and then they go from there. Sometimes they stick to it, sometimes they scrap it halfway through because the story took a totally different turn. One big benefit of discovery writing and pantsing is just how fun it is. You just feel so in tune with your characters and your creative juices are flowing. You just have this connection to your character where they're helping you make the decision, and you just feel so connected to the story, to the plot, to the characters, and it's just so much fun. But while it can be fun, it can also be pretty hard, because when writer's block hits, you don't have an outline to turn to where you have things planned for your story. You're kind of just stuck where you're just waiting for the inspiration to hit, and that can be really discouraging if you're discovery writing. When you're done, it can also be pretty hard because your manuscript tends to be pretty rough. As I said before, you might have random side plots pop up that make no sense but felt cool in the moment or just was a blast of inspiration. So it can be a lot more of a messy draft to work through in the second phase where you're actually editing your story. One tip for discovery writers is just make sure that you take notes on what you reveal as you go, because as I found before discovery writing, you tend to reveal things and then you forget you revealed things, and then it's just more work in the editing process. So make sure that you're taking notes on what you need to do, how you accomplish it, and then go from there. You don't actually have to plot, but make sure that you write what you did do. The reality is, at some point, you have to decide what works best for you. It's your story. No one else has to tell you how to write it because it's your story. You're the one writing it. You're the one coming up with the ideas. So you'll figure out which way it works best for you. There really isn't a right or wrong. It's just what matters to your story and the best way that you can communicate it. And since storytelling is so intricately based in inspiration and creativity, what matters most is that it inspires you and gets you excited. So there isn't a right or wrong between pantsing or plotting, but it is good to try both, see which one works best for you, and then stick to one and give it a try and see how your manuscript turns out and what works best for you. So I'm wishing you all the best in your writing journey. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe to follow along for more writing tips. And I can't wait to see you next week.